And now, episode 25. It starts here. So let's begin with this chapter, Jantar Mantàr, episode 25. As the door slides open, a warm, stagnant, stale air of rotten fruit and mildew strikes the noses of the four. Only Marie and her mother Bailey are visibly offended by the stench that visibly betrays their dislike. All fall into a stare of awe as they look at this majestic view of a large structure known simply as Jantar Mantàr. "What is that?" asked Bailey. "Some sort of temple or shrine?" A deep echo voice from behind her speaks up and says, "Negative. It is not a temple or a shrine." Bailey turns around, leans forward and says, "Who said that?" Christian replies to Bailey with a demure smile and says, "It's the onboard computer. It becomes activated when the door is open." "Oh, then, Mr. Computer, what is that?" asked Bailey again. "The structure just ahead of you is an observatory. It is an exact replica of the Jantar Mantàr in India." Champ folds his arms with pleasure regarding the computer as he says, "Computer, what is the history of Jantar Mantàr?" And there's another picture of the building, which we use right there. Jantar Mantàr is a common name of 3 of the 5 observatories built by the Maharaja Sawiji Ja Singhi II of the 18th century. It comes from the word jantar. This comes from the Sanskrit meaning instrument, or mantar meaning formula. The colloquial practice of adding a rhyme rhyming word for the emphasis is not unusual. The observatory has 4 different computer and history narratives, says Christian with a slight rolling of his eyes. Champ looks at him with irritation as Champ ignores his irritation and pulls out a playing card from his back pocket. He puts the deck ace of spades and puts it inside his front pocket. The sound of a click. A puff of smoke appears over the whole body, and there he stands with a bald head, shaded gray on both sides, wearing a long lab coat and an eye monocle. Turning to Bailey, he proudly proclaims, "I'm a genius now. I can answer all your questions. Now you don't need this primitive machine." And as you can see, the picture illustrated. Bailey nods and says in a monotone, "And so you are. Why is that so important to you?" GQ is almost offended at the question as he turns to the computer and says, "So tell me, MPR 200167, what is your primary function?" "To navigate this ship," curts the machine briskly. "Ah, so history is not your primary purpose then. So tell me, MRP 200167, do you know where in the structure we are to find Mr. Brady, Wilder, and Boxy Jones, also known as the Equinox, and you?" Computer remains silent by the rebuke as GQ smirks to himself. "Of course you don't. After all, you're just a machine, not a genius like me," he boasts smugly. Bailey looks at him curiously as the man seems to draw pleasure in putting down anybody, even a machine. She continues to wonder what's wrong with this man. If he was trying to impress her, he's failing miserably. Baby doll and Marie exit from the adjoining room and outside to the ground below. Baby doll shoots a glance up at Christian and notices the smirk on his face and rolls her eyes, knowing he was showing off his powers. The stairs lower as GQ, Champ, and Bailey descend down the short ladder. Once they have reached the ground, the ladder retracts and GQ moves over to the right side, leans on the metal frame, admiring the view, and says with superciliousness, "We were wondering when you ladies would be done gossiping about me in the engine room and come out. I bet you thought my ears were burning, didn't you?" He suddenly retracts his hand from a hot surface of the air-train metal casing and begins to shake it vehemently as if to cool it off. Marie smirks a congratulatory look at Baby Doll, a.k.a. Sizzle Cat, who shares a small amount of guilt from heating up the surface by GQ's hand. "Hot?" says Marie with a diabolical grin. "Imagine that." Baby Doll is again caught up in a grin as she turns to the others and says, "So, are we going to get going, or are we just going to take in the sights?" GQ exhales and quickly turns to Bailey as the little grin begins to take form. Bailey squints her eyes with an evil warning as to not even think about making some stupid remark about her being a sight to behold. Christian turns to Champ for sympathy as he says, "Hell hath no fury like a woman." "Stop it," says Bailey forcefully. "Just stop it. Not another word, Christian. I've had enough." GQ is more hurt than surprised as Champ and Bailey begin to follow him to catch up with Marie and Baby Doll, who are a good 20 yards ahead of them. GQ reaches into his back pocket and once again withdraws another card and places it in his front pocket. Another transformation begins with a puff of white smoke as a man dressed in an old English clothing appears with a large magnifying glass in hand. A closer look reveals a three-piece suit in an English style along with a vest pocket watch. This Victorian style was especially set off with a Tripoli type of inspector hat and large magnifying glass in his right hand. "It's always the clothing that makes the man," GQ is fond of saying, and today he was the inspector. Bailey exhales and says to Champ with exhausted grief, "What is he doing now?" A short chortle of laughter of Champ to himself as he says with a mock English accent, "Elementary, my dear Bailey, elementary. He's become our Sherlock Holmes." "Sherlock Holmes? God help us," replies the tired and appalled Bailey. He stops for a moment and looks at the group with a magnifying glass as Champ stops with him. Bailey walks past both to join the girls. When Bailey finally catches up to them, Baby Doll stops walking and sniffs the air. With her heightened cat sense of smell and hearing, she slowly scopes out the area. She turns to Marie and says, "Nothing out of the ordinary. I think it's safe to continue." And there's the picture of where they are coming to, Jantar Mantàr. As they move closer to the structure, they come to what seems to be an entrance with two spade-like shaped circles. Within circles, they climb to the center, step single file, carefully moving their hand on a small little rail nested in the shadows of the concrete wall. The surface is very clean and free from sand and dirt and seems to enjoy minimum use. When they reach the top of the stairs, the view is most striking. They all take just a moment to scan the area, looking for any other landmarks or buildings of such. The area is full and dense with all kinds of tall trees, shrubs, and assorted foliage. Champ thinks to himself, what an ideal place this would be to get ambushed by an enemy. He is determined to keep his wits about him, even if he sees no immediate threat. But he does have a strange feeling about this place. What's the matter, Champ? Asked Bailey. I don't know. It just seems like the perfect place to get ambushed, says Champ softly as his eyes rove carefully over especially dark areas of the surrounding trees. Bailey touches Baby Doll and asks again, so does everything still smell okay from our Sizzle Cat? Yes, says Sizzle Cat with a warm glow from her face. Champ's fears are not quite put to rest as he turns to look behind him and sees GQ almost comically using his magnifying glass on the hand guardrail as if looking for some important clues. As they approach the top, Baby Doll stops and waits for the others. GQ seems to be meandering a good 20 yards behind them all and keeps examining the masonry structure in closer detail. GQ approaches the spot, calls the others to come back and see what he has found. You see, folks, this spot right here is called the Misha Yantra. This indicates where it is noon in various cities. Nice, says Bailey with soft sarcasm. They begin to come to another set of stairs and descend yet another flight of stairs. These steps drop a short distance to another platform with what seems like a number of sundials and other ancient forms of sky lamps that are all sprawled out and ready for viewing. As they all begin to move around as if it was a museum, Bailey speaks up and asks, what are we looking at? And this is where we stop. And we'll find out at the next episode, 26. Thank you for viewing, and stay with us. It just gets better and better and better. Man who's filming somebody else.